Good evening, creep. Welcome to the Mystery Playhouse. Creeps over the minds of mortal men come many shadows. Shadows of greed and hate, jealousy and fear. Darkness is the absence of light. So in the sudden shadows which fog the minds of men and women are to be found the strange impulses which urge them into the unknown. Listen now to Turnabout, tonight's venture in the dark.
My motive for killing Marvin Rice was really quite commonplace. Fear, hatred, envy. Now let's skip the motives. The part I find fascinating was the actual crime itself. It was so original. So amazingly clever, if you'll pardon me saying it. There wasn't a flaw in it anywhere. There wasn't the slightest chance in all the world that it would fail. And it didn't fail. Yet downstairs in the prison courtyard, they're testing a gallows built especially for me. As I said, my motive for killing Marvin was in no way unusual. He and I were partners in an exporting business. And for a long time, I had helped myself to considerably more than 50% of the profits. When Marvin found it out and added it up, it came to something like $50,000. But I think he was really more shocked at my reasons for taking the money than anything else.
You mean you spent all this money on another woman? But what about Ellen?
What about her?
She's your wife.
Oh, don't try to figure it out, Marvin. It's quite complicated. You see, I'm not like you. I can't trot home to my suburban paradise every night to sit by the fireplace in my bedroom slippers and jabber about the petunias. You can't. So that makes your Francis luckier than my Ellen.
But cheating on your wife, that's the worst part. That's the part I can't forget.
No speeches, Marvin, please. I'm not in the mood.
Oh, you're not in the mood, huh? In that case, I'm sorry I even brought the matter up. Or perhaps you are in the mood to tell me what you're going to do about this $50,000 shortage.
I don't know. I'll think of something.
I see. Well, what day is this, Richard?
May 20th. Why?
May 20th. I'm circling June 1st on my desk calendar. If you haven't replaced the money by then, I'll put you in jail.
Jail? You wouldn't do that, Marvin.
You want to bet?
No.
In the meantime, no one will know about the shortage. We'll continue working in the office as we always have. Until the 1st.
Partners to the end. Huh?
After stealing $50,000, what did you expect me to do, Dick? Offer you my congratulations?
As soon as I left Marvin's office, I telephoned the lady I'd spent the money on. She was very understanding. She assured me she'd hock all the things I'd bought her, and she told me to come to her apartment that same evening to pick up the money. When I got to the apartment, I found the only vacancy in the city of Los Angeles. She'd run out, all right. I telephoned Marvin right away.
So, she ran out on you, huh? That's too bad. But I've still got June 1st circled on my calendar.
But, Marv, listen to me. You got to give me a little more time.
June 1st.
But I can't.
I asked my lawyer just what the penalty in this state was for embezzlement. Do you know it runs as high as 10 years?
Well, what good would it do you to put me in jail? You still wouldn't have the money?
It's not entirely the money, Dick. As I told you before, I can't forgive a man who would steal money to cheat on his wife.
But, Marv...
June 1st.
During the next week, I found that lifting $50,000 is a lot easier than raising $50,000. There wasn't a chance in the world of getting that money. Oh, but I knew when it came to a showdown, Marvin wouldn't send me to prison.
You want to bet?
10 years. He wouldn't lock me away for 10 years.
You want to bet?
10 years. Everything gone. No, I couldn't let him do that to me.
You want to bet?
I'd kill him first. I'd kill him. Yes, I'd have to kill Marvin. The thought drifted into my mind with the ease of an old friend. I'd have to kill Marvin. There was no other way. But how? Without bringing suspicion on myself. I went downstairs for a cup of coffee and found the answer tacked to a cash register in a little cafe. Waiter.
Yes, sir?
That's fine. If the coffee's weak and the steak is tough, blame Sally. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before.
That's just a gag the manager cooked up. Figured if the customers blame Sally, they wouldn't pick on us.
But what about Sally? She must take a lot of punishment.
That's just it. You see, there isn't any Sally. Need more coffee, sir? I said more. Said more coffee?
No more coffee. But thanks anyway. Yeah. Thank you very much. so I found my plan of murder. If the customers blamed Sally, they wouldn't pick on us, and they couldn't pick on Sally if there wasn't any Sally. There was something else so fascinating about the idea. Marvin Rice, the ideal husband who despised me so for cheating on my wife, Marvin Rice, was going to be killed by another woman. Oh, really? Wasn't that a perfectly wonderful idea? I went back to the office. It was after closing time, and Marvin was on the 6:15 Suburban Special headed for Palmdale, his wife Frances, and the Petunias. The office was empty except for Miss Brown, Marvin's secretary. She was working on some reports. Well, this was as good a time as any to begin. I went into my private office, but I didn't close the door. Without picking up the receiver, I started dialing our own number. I felt like a kid starting a snowball down a hill. Miss Brown didn't hear me dial, but she did hear the phone ring an instant later. I picked up the receiver and moved my lips as though I were talking. I hung up. Miss Brown?
Yes, sir?
That call was for Mr. Rice. Better tell him about it tomorrow.
I'll leave a note on his desk.
All right.
Who was it?
Somebody named Sally.
Sally?
Yeah, no last name, no middle initial, just Sally. Said she was a friend. I don't know. She sounded kind of mad. After Miss Brown left for the day, I called the Bartlett Hotel, and I reserved a room for the following night in the name of Mr. and Mrs. Marvin Rice, and I told the clerk to be sure to have a good bottle of wine in the room and 2 glasses. And I called a ticket agency and reserved 2 seats for the Ice Follies for Mr. and Mrs. Marvin Rice. Later, I went to a hock shop in Skid Row and persuaded the kindly clerk to sell me a $20 revolver for $100. I was just about all set. The next morning, I got a quick look at Marvin's appointment book and saw he was going to be out from 11 to 1. I went down to the cigar store, closed myself in a telephone booth, and dialed Western Union. Hello, Western Union. I want to send a telegram to Mrs. Marvin Rice, Palmdale, California. Here's a message. Won't be home tonight. Busy with Barnes and E.S. on new catalog. Call at noon and we'll explain. See you tomorrow, Marvin. No, make that love, Marvin.
Harry's Florist shop.
This is Marvin Rice calling.
Yes, monsieur?
I want you to send a nice orchid corsage to my wife. Send it to the Bartlett Hotel, room 612. Charges my account.
Yes, monsieur.
And enclose this note. To my Sally, without you, life has no meaning. Love, Marvin. I got back to the office a few minutes after 11. Marvin had already gone to his conference when his wife Frances called. I took the call.
Dick, I was so surprised when I got the wire this morning.
Wire?
Yes, from Marvin. Telling me you two would have to work all night on the new catalog. My heavens, I didn't think the catalog was coming out for another 6 months.
What isn't?
Then why work all night?
Oh, I'm working on some reports of my own tonight, but Oh.
Yes.
Well, Marvin didn't say anything to me about working.
I have the wire right here in my hand.
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, Marv told me he was leaving early tonight. Look, as soon as he comes in, I'll have him call you. I'm sure he'll be able to explain everything. Marvin, your wife called while you were around.
Oh?
Yeah, her mother's taken ill.
Ill?
Oh, it's nothing serious. But Frances is going to spend the night with her.
Oh, well, I'd better call Frances up and find out what's wrong.
Well, you won't be able to reach her. She was just leaving the house for the train when she called. She said for you to stay in town tonight.
In town?
Mm-hmm.
Where does she think I'm going to get a place in town this late?
Well, if you like, I can get a room for you somewhere.
Well, okay, you'd better do it.
All right.
By the way, how's the money-raising situation?
Hmm?
You know, June 1st is only 2 days away.
Oh, that, yeah. Well, you know, Marvin, I think I figured a way out of that mess.
Yeah? Well, for your sake and for Ellen's sake, I hope it works.
Thanks. So far, knock wood, it's working fine. Around 4 o'clock, I went down to the corner telephone booth and called Marvin's wife again. I told her that he'd called in and said he'd be home for the rest of the day, or rather that he'd been gone on business. I hit that word, business, just right. After that, I found Marvin and told him I'd reserved him a room in the Bartlett, room 612. Then I asked Miss Brown to work overtime with me, and Marvin went over to the hotel. He called me the second he got into the room.
Hey, this place gives me the creeps.
Why?
You know what I found over here waiting for me?
No, what?
An orchid and a chilled bottle of wine.
My, what'll Frances say?
Well, it's not funny. So many things have happened today that don't make sense.
Oh, I'm sure there must be a logical explanation for everything. Look, I'll drop over and we'll have a drink of that wine. Maybe we can figure this thing out, huh?
Yeah, do that, will you, Dick?
I went out to the front office and told Miss Brown to wake me in an hour, that I was going to take a snooze. Then I locked my office, went out the window, down the fire escape into the alley. It was 10 after 8. I had to be back at the desk when she knocked at 10 after 9. I made one stop. I bought a 60-cent tube of lipstick. By the time I got to the Bartlett, it was 14 minutes to 9. The lobby was crowded. Nobody would remember me. It was exactly 10 minutes to 9 when I knocked on Marvin's door.
Oh, it's you, Dick. Come in. Well, the things that have happened tonight, it certainly got me confused.
Has it, Marvin?
Yes, it... What are you doing with that lipstick?
Just decorating a few cigarette stubs in this glass.
Huh?
Sally has a good taste in lipstick, hasn't she?
Sally? Who? Sally? Dick, that gun. What are you...
On my way down the hall, some guy opened his door and asked me if I heard pistol shots. I turned my head and said, yeah, I thought I did. I got back to the office building at 3 minutes after 9. The gun was still in my pocket. I wasn't going to dump it any place where somebody would find it. I got into the basement of our building and ducked the gun behind one of the boilers. There was dust an inch thick on it. No one had been around there in 40 years. I got up to the office at 6 minutes after 9. I took off my coat. I slumped down on my chair. I felt fine. And 4 minutes later, Miss Brown remembered me. Yeah? What is it?
10 after 9, Mr. Barnes.
So soon, huh? Oh, gosh. Seems like I just closed my eyes. And that's all there was to it. They found Marvin a couple of hours later, and there was a big investigation. But they never found a trace of the person they were looking for, a girl known only as Sally. Created quite a sensation, the sanctimonious Mr. Marvin Rice, murdered in a love nest. Everyone was so shocked. My wife, Ellen, couldn't get over it, and we all pitied poor, dear Francis. Now, no one could understand it. But the guy who could understand it least of all was poor Inspector Norris, who'd been assigned to the case.
It's driving me nuts, Barnes. Dame doesn't just vanish in a puff of smoke, you know.
Still no trace of her.
Nothing. I traced back everything Rice did for the whole week up to the murder. Everywhere I turn, I see evidence of Sally, but not one person who ever saw her.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I don't care where I have to go or how long it takes. I'm going to keep looking for her. And I'll find her. You see if I don't.
And he did look for quite a while, too. And then he gave it up for fresher, less complicated murders. I became full owner of the company, and life was very good. That is until 3 months ago. That morning, I came down to work, and Miss Brown, who was my secretary now, was waiting for me with a funny look on her face.
Mr. Barnes.
Yeah.
Someone called you last night after you left, and again this morning.
Yeah? Who?
Well, she said her name was Sally, Mr. Barnes,
Sally?
and that she had to see you sometime today.
Sally called? How could she? You're lying.
I'm not lying. Well, why should I lie?
How could it be Sally?
Don't you think you'd better go to the police, Mr. Barnes?
Police?
Well, wasn't Sally the name of the girl they think killed Mr. Rice?
Yes. But I... Yes.
Dick, this is Ellen.
What do you want?
My goodness, you needn't bite my head off. I just called about the telegram.
A what?
The telegram you sent. I got it about an hour ago.
I didn't send a telegram.
But of course you did. Telling me you wouldn't be home tonight. I'll read it to you. Won't be home tonight. Busy on new catalog.
When did you get that telegram?
I told you about an hour ago. But you must have sent it there. Your name is on
I
it.
don't care whose name is on it. I'll be home tonight. You understand? I grabbed a taxi and headed for the police department. I felt like a guy in the middle of a nightmare. What was going on? Well, that cop Norse was pretty smart. He'd find out who was behind this. And then it hit me right between the eyes. I couldn't go to the cops. Whoever was doing this knew that I'd killed Marvin. Hey, cabby, never mind the police station. Take me back to my office.
to the police?
Huh? Yeah. They said they'll make a complete investigation.
She called again while you were gone.
Who?
Sally.
What does her voice sound like, Miss Brown?
Well, it's
Does it sound like Ellen's or Mrs. Rice's?
No. Why should
All right,
they...
skip it. Any other calls?
Well, a couple of business calls and... Oh, yes. The Acme Ticket Agency.
Acme Ticket Agency?
Yes, they were able to get you 2 tickets to the Ice Follies. They'll hold them for you until 8 o'clock.
Oh, that's very kind of them, especially since I didn't order the tickets.
Well, then who did?
I don't know. I'll get it. Yes.
This is the room clerk at the Barnes Hotel. I'd like to speak to Mr. Barnes.
Miss Barnes, what do you want?
I just wish to confirm your reservation for tonight, Mr. Barnes.
My reservation?
Yes, room 612 will be available as you requested.
612? But I didn't request anything.
I beg your pardon, sir.
Wait, yes. It slipped my mind. I'm sorry. Room 612 will be fine. I'll be there tonight. I had to go to the hotel and wait for Sally. Whoever Sally turned out to be. Because if I didn't, I'd never be safe again. But when my Sally came to the hotel tonight, she wouldn't find me shivering under the bed. She'd find me waiting with my gun. I went down to the boiler room of the office building and dug it out. 4 bullets left. Then I went out and had a couple of drinks. After that, I did a crazy thing. I went to the cemetery where Marvin was buried. He was still there, of course. And I felt like a jerk for even going. I got to the Bartlett Hotel lobby at 7:30 in the evening. The drinks were wearing off. I didn't feel any too good.
Here is your key to 612.
Thanks. Did Mrs. Barnes show up yet?
No, sir, she hasn't. But we sent the wine up just as you ordered.
Wine. Yeah, I kind of expected it would be there. When I got to the room, it really took plenty of courage not to just turn around and start running. But if I did that, I was through. Somebody knew what I'd done. Somebody knew the whole plan. Whoever it was coming here tonight. Probably to shake me down. I felt the gun in my pocket. There wouldn't be any shakedown. After the bellboy left, I looked around the room. I could feel my whole insides churning around like a washing machine. I saw some cigarette butts in the ashtray. There was lipstick on them.
Room clerk.
It's Mr. Barnes. Look, you told me no one had been up here in my room.
And there hasn't been anybody, sir.
Don't lie to me. Who was it?
I beg your pardon, sir.
There's cigarette stubs in the ashtrays. They didn't get there by themselves.
No one's been up to your room, sir. The maid must have overlooked the ashtrays. You know, it's so hard to get efficient help.
I looked at my watch. It was 8:30. If everything went according to schedule, there'd be a knock on the door at 10 to 9, and then I'd know. I held the gun level, started for the door. But my legs weighed a ton. I'm coming, Sally. I'm coming. Flowers, Mrs. Barnes, sir. And the florist just delivered it, sir. Looks like an orchid. It was an orchid, all right, and there was a card in it. And the card read, "To my Sally, without you, life has no meaning. Love." Only this time it was signed, Richard. I felt myself going to pieces. It was almost 20 to 9. Twice I went to the phone to call Detective Norse, but I couldn't go through with it. It would be like sticking my head into a noose. I started drinking the wine. That helped me a little. I broke the gun open. Everything was all right. I looked at my watch again, 15 to 9. I got up and went to the door. I opened it quickly and looked down the hall. The hall was empty. I closed the door. I was trembling like a dried-up old man. It was almost time. I took out the gun and put it on the bed. It was 11 minutes to 9. 1 more minute, if Sally were to arrive on schedule. Picked up the gun. I held it with both hands. And I pointed it to the door. Okay. You asked for it. I don't know how long I just stood there, looking at the 4 bullet holes in the closed door. The empty gun was still in my hand. I walked to the door. Who would it be?
Okay, Barnes. Just hand over the gun.
Inspector Norris.
That's better.
Hey, wait.
Harry, take this down to the laboratory right away. Give you any odds you want. It's the gun that killed Marvin Rice.
Take your time. It's the gun. I killed him. That's the whole works, Inspector Norris, complete in every detail. Something for the reformers to worry about, isn't it? The menace of small signs nailed over cash registers. If it hadn't been for that, I'd never thought up Sally.
If it hadn't been for Sally, I'd never caught up with you.
What are you talking about? There isn't any Sally.
Yeah, I know, but it took me some time to realize that. Remember what I told you? Didn't care where I had to go or how long I had to look, I'd find her. Well, I looked so hard, I found you instead.
But how did you know about the telegram and the orchid and everything else?
It wasn't tough. I told you before, I checked back on everything that had happened to Rice for the whole week. When I realized there wasn't a Sally, I had to find another suspect. I chose you.
You turned my own plan against me.
That's right. It was a shot in the dark. When you didn't come to me for help after I started things going, I knew I hit the jackpot.
Oh, one last question, Professor. When did you find out there wasn't any Sally?
When I started tracing back in Marvin Rice's life.
Mm-hmm. That's where I slipped up, huh? Well, I should have known no one would believe a smug, sanctimonious bore like Marvin could ever have another woman.
Oh, but you're wrong there, Mr. Barnes.
Hmm?
I knew Sally was a fake because during the investigation we discovered the other woman. Her name wasn't Sally, and she had a perfect alibi.
I don't get you.
The other woman's name was Ellen. Your wife, Mr. Barnes.
A treat that brings down the curtain on Dark Venture featuring Elliot Lewis. Tonight's performance in the Mystery Playhouse.